Hey, what's happening? How's everybody doing this Friday night evening? I hope that you're enjoying the beautiful weather that's out there because summer is starting to arrive, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank you all that's tuning in right now. Please like and share the FFN network. We got a special one for you tonight. I'll tell you that, ladies and gentlemen. And we're going to introduce a new member to the FFN network family right here on this show tonight, ladies and gentlemen. So we all hope that you're pumped up for that. And tonight's show, we are going to speak a little bit about the Houthi. Hi, Ann. Thanks for joining the show. We are going to talk about the Houthis and attack of the Eisenhower aircraft carrier. Um, and we are going to discuss at length, okay, until we're tired of talking about it. And we are going to discuss the JFK assassination on tonight's show. So if you're a big conspiracy theorist, then you're definitely going to want to watch this show tonight. Let me introduce some of the other co-hosts. I am one of your co-hosts, Blazeman. Next gentleman I am going to introduce to you is not only Mr. Fogman himself. Okay, he is one of the co-hosts on the I-12 GIA Real Talk with Real People right here on the FFN network on Wednesday nights from 8 to 9 p.m. Let's welcome aboard Mr. Fogman.
Hey, Blaze man, thanks for having me tonight. I always wanted to say that. I'm looking forward to this evening.
Yeah, well, looking forward to it as well. Everything's up and running. Everything's smooth. You ready to go?
Yep, let's rock and roll, brother.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Here's another guy. Well, there's two of them tonight. I have a toss up in between of which one's more crazy than the other. You know what I mean? I know which one of them's the ladies' man. But you're going to have to figure that out for yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. That's all I'm going to say to that. And next gentleman that's going to be introduced to tonight's show is the one and only Rain Man from I-12 GIA Real Talk with Real People. What's up, buddy?
Hey, thank you for having me tonight, and I'm looking forward to consorting with the rest of our guests. It's going to be an all-star show.
I appreciate you being here, buddy. I appreciate you being here. Ladies and gentlemen, there's so many ways I can introduce this next guy. But there's, I could do it, in a manner that, listen, ladies, just for the time being, just turn the screen off, right? Because I don't know what it is with this guy that he does things to the women that just make him, shake and roll and rattle and shake, rattle, and rolling and all of that fun stuff like that. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, and does his own show right here on Wednesday nights from 7 to 8 p.m. right here on the FFN network, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. B.
My dearest friend Fritzy is out of his wits. He has 4,000 children to feed. But me, I'm sitting pretty. I've got all the money I need.
How you doing tonight, B? How are you
Not
doing
bad,
tonight,
gentlemen.
B?
How you doing? I am wash in honor to be sitting here.
You washed today?
Gentlemen, this evening.
Okay, I try to
Thank
tell
you
you a
very much
bunch
for
of
having me
times.
in.
Listen, the viewers don't want to hear if you washed up today or not. All right, let's
Well,
just keep
all right,
that to
fine.
ourselves. Okay,
I'm washing a little bourbon down with this coffee.
ladies and gentlemen, now we're going to introduce a gentleman that just blew me away when he was a guest on a couple of the shows on the network. He just blew me away with his knowledge. Okay. He's a fast talker, and don't worry, we will get him to slow down just a little bit. But what I would like to do is get a little intro, something real quick from his colleagues in Fogman and Rainey. Would you like to introduce our new freak show to the FFN network family?
Fogman? I got it. Yep. Well, we're going to bring in Nomad tonight. Nomad is our wandering correspondent. He he wanders and he parachutes in occasionally, and he gathers info from us from all over the world. He's got a storied and very intricate background, some of which will remain undisclosed for the remainder of time, and most of which is covered by NDAs and that all of us have that we just can't talk about. But he's graced us with his presence tonight, and I'm really looking forward to getting his input on everything. Rennie, you
All
want to
right,
follow up on that?
awesome. So, without further ado, Rainey,
Come on in, Nomad.
all right, ladies and
Your time
gentlemen,
to shine, brother.
let's introduce him again, ladies and gentlemen, a new correspondent to the FFN network, the one and only Nomad. What's up, buddy?
Thank you, fellas. Thank you very much. I speak some sort of English. I will slow down.
How are you, Nomad? How are you doing? And if you could just give the viewers a little slight bio, something you could let them know without being hunted down.
Been hunted down most of my life. Former military from Europe. Did a bit of stuff. Did some stuff for Uncle Sam and some other entities. Now a U.S. citizen. Proud to be an American, even especially right now, considering yesterday's circus. And very much obliged to the opportunity for you guys give me the chance to put my perspective on things. So hopefully I can add to this and give you a different take every now and then on what we're being spoon-fed by the media.
All right. Appreciate you, buddy. Appreciate you. Everybody knows the rules. Everybody knows what we need to do to get our point across. B, don't drag any hostages in front of the camera and say, I want to turn, or this is going to be it. Things to that nature. All right. Okay.
Absolutely not.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, thanks for joining a special edition here on the FFN Network Media News. And we'd like to start off tonight with a little bit of Houthis, and they're acting a little bit, no pun on you, Fogman, but they're acting a little froggy, right?
Yep, they are. Those little devils tried attacking a U.S. aircraft carrier.
I mean, and what are they shooting at them? They're shooting at them like fucking BBs against a freight train or something. I don't know. You guys are the experts on that, but Fogman, what's your deal?
Well, yeah, it's BBs and blowguns and poison darts and shit. But they're a lot more sophisticated than that. Now, I know for certain that Nomad has got a lot more information about their behavior than I do, because I know he's probably spent some time with them in various undisclosed locations in that part of the world. So
right.
Kick this
and
over
that's what I'm doing. I'm saving Nomad. You know what I mean? I'm saving them. I want to get everybody else's perspective first.
Okay.
And we're going to go to Mr. B. Go ahead, buddy.
A couple things, some housekeeping about all this, some background for the people who may be watching. From what I understand, the Iranian-backed Houthis, a terrorist group, claims responsibility for a strike against the U.S. aircraft carrier Eisenhower. The time of the attack is unclear, as is the number or type of projectiles fired. The rest of the information right now, we're still waiting for a little more information to come in and confirmation of it before we can get it out. We don't want to put out some information that would be wrong. And as a side note, excuse me, our new fellow here mentioned that he speaks English, so I hope he understands that, as Mr. George Bernard Shaw had said, the Americans and the British are two peoples separated by a common language.
Okay. English. Renee.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, you got to pay no man. I mean, you got to pay the man behind the curtain. No, don't worry about him. It's Renee. He has a habit of putting his head into his desk for when he's reading and writing. So
I'm looking for.
Go ahead, buddy.
I'm looking for information. That's all.
Good. What's your take
On the Houthis?
and the blowfish?
Huh.
Well, guns.
Let's leave the blowfish out of it. The Houthis, they're acting like they normally do when they can't have their way. You know, uh, I'm sure in the wake of what happened yesterday, I read an article today how Russia's all upset about the Trump verdict and they're concerned. And I think Iran is the same way. And I think they told the Houthis to stop pushing buttons, and that's what they're doing.
All right. Nomad, what's your take on it?
What you're seeing right now is the culmination of something that's been going on since the early 2000s. And the Houthis are, if people, the first thing people need to understand is your geography. And off the east coast of Africa, everybody remembered the movie Black Hawk Down?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, so east of Somalia, across on the sea there, you've got Saudi Arabia on the top and Yemen on the south of it. Saudis and the Iranians, the Saudis and the Iranians have always been at loggerheads religiously, and the Houthis primarily in the mid 2000s they came to prominence and had some Iranian backed training. So around 2010, 2011, the Houthi conflict began, and a guy by the name of Abda Rabba Mansour Hadi, that's a great name, Hadi, he got kicked out of Yemen. And so
Because he had a long name.
he had a long name and he had a
Okay.
big enough desk for his business card. So
Gotcha.
what happened was he got kicked out and the vacuum was filled by the Houthis. Now, the Houthis themselves are known as Ansar Allah, which is known as the supporter of God. So they're the same religious sect or division of Sharia and of Islam that the Iranians have. So there's a natural thing going on there. So from around 2010, 2011, the Houthis have been tormenting shipping in the Red Sea. So they've got local knowledge, which is key to everything you do from an operational point of view. Weaponry that they're using right now, they're using drones, not drones that we would assume what you would see on the actual on the we see on our news. There are drones that they are Iranian that are very sophisticated. So everything from low grade AK-47 fire, small arms fire, to ballistic missiles. In the last, since October 7 with the Israeli thing, the British, the French, and the Americans have devastated the Houthi arsenal and taken out a lot of their missile capability. So what they've got left has to be close quarter, CQB. So they've got to come close to do it. And they've learned as well from the lessons, I would suspect, of USS Cole back in the 90s, when you got so close and those guys put a hole in a ship. Not the same outfit, but what I'm saying is the human element, the local knowledge, and the Iranian technology and training has led to today's situation.
Okay, well, I think Renee was would like to weigh in next. Yes.
Yeah, I got a question for Nomad. Hey, they're the same group that kidnapped all those girls, right?
No, that's Boko Haram. You talk about in Niger and Nigeria. Are those
Okay, that's
guys?
Boko Haram. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The
All right.
Houthi, but interesting. You raise a good point. There's a whole network of terrorism. It's like pyramid selling,
Yeah.
from the
Yeah.
from the south
Yeah.
south of the Philippines in Mindanao, right
Yeah.
up to you've got Abu Sayyaf
Yeah.
in East Africa, Abu Sayyaf down in the Philippines. So you've got a common network. And if you remember back in Gaddafi's times in the mid 80s, before Reagan and Thatcher bombed the shit out of him, basically there was a lot of training camps in North Africa. And, desert is desert no matter where you are.
Yeah.
So they've learned from some world-class organizations in relation to effectiveness, and our counterterrorism end of it now is very good. The difference being right now, we have a very limited presence in the area, and so we've had to rely upon strategic partners to actually take care of it. U.S. Coast Guard have been heavily involved with patrolling the Red Sea. But here's the thing: the Red Sea itself, the Houthis have knowledge of everything there, and there's a cultural and religious and business relationship with the Somali pirates on the east coast. I was based in Bosaso in Somalia a long time ago, and we had to scuttle, which is destroy a fishing vessel to block a harbor from these guys coming in. 50 of us versus 1,200 of them. We won through superior air power and naval backup. But these guys are not to be underestimated at all. At all. No.
Yeah, they're not the. I got the impression that they're not the sandal wearing camel jockeys wandering through the desert and
No, they got their shit together.
yeah.
You know, they do. And we know that Iran backs them the most, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
And what exactly is Iran supplying the Houthis with?
Do you want me to jump in?
Money, weapons.
Yes.
Money, weapons, training, and ideology. Iran is like Iran needs foreign currency. Now, the president, big butt and the big chair, released money recently to Iran, so they've got lots of dollar bills. But
Does
up to
Iran?
that,
I'm sorry, Nomad. But does Iran have their own currency?
they do have their own currency. I think they got a denarii or
denarii.
I have to check on the denarii. Yeah, but it's not worth anything. It's monopoly money.
Yeah.
No, but the issue with the Iranian side of it is very what people may not understand, and I know from an SF point of view from outside of the States. If you look at what's going on in the world right now, and bring it back to the Houthis, I promise. You have North Korean missile technology. You have Pakistani and other intel and physicists going on with stuff. You've got Russian guidance systems. You've got Iranian fuel cell technology and guidance as well. So if you took a single ballistic missile, there's probably 3 or 4 axis of evil hands involved with the engineering of that. Some of the missiles that were fired by the Iranians allegedly at Israel, going back about 2 months ago now at this stage, when they fired 300 missiles and drones at them. Some of those were actually had components which were Russian, actual motherboards, talking to people that I still have a contact with. So you have a fusion of technology going on because you have a common enemy, which is us.
Gentlemen, if I can interrupt here for a moment for a position of question, simply because we hear people saying things, oh, these are just a bunch of camel jockeys, low tech, this and whatever else. Isn't it true that all of these low tech things that they come up with can be some of the most dangerous if we are off our guard and become lackadaisical about it because it is all low tech? We can put our guard down and find ourselves in a very, very upsetting situation. Is this not correct?
Nomad.
Yeah, if you look at the IED technology that was used against us and coalition forces in Iran and Iraq, some of the forensic bomb tech stuff that came up on that. I'll give an example. The Basque ETA separatists, the Irish IRA, they had bomb technology which was utilized, and the same technology and methodology was used in Iraq and Iran with IED. So you have the same type of stuff now going on. People share skills. What was once a terrorist is now a consultant. He's now working for somebody else. So where the money is, they go. The technology used against some of our ballistic armor on our armored vehicles was gone back 1,000 years. Molten copper to melt the skirting on the armor plating on some of our stuff, and did it. We had sticky bombs in Bosnia, sticky bombs in Serbia, sticky bombs in Africa, sticky bombs in Afghan. And so low-grade technology has always worked. Despite our technology, despite feet per second on a bullet, a crossbow does the same job within the proper range. So
all you want to do is disable a unit in a way to where you can get an ambush set up.
Yes, if you stop someone, they're a sitting duck. That's the bottom line.
Correct.
I hate
Fogman. Go ahead.
Yeah, those little buggers just shot down a Reaper drone. Apparently, There's a video that I just sent. If we can get that queued up to watch, maybe is that possible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Let's do it. And I agree. I hate sticky bombs and copper-shaped charges. They were a nightmare for us in Afghanistan.
Renee, it looks like you want to have something to say.
Yeah, I just was going to echo what Nomad was saying because I'm EOD trained. The cheapest stuff is the most dangerous stuff. I dealt with a lot of the dirty bomb shit right after 9/11. Cheap stuff is the worst stuff you can deal with because you get a mishmash of components and you don't know what you got or how they worked it. So,
I'd like to follow up with that, if I could.
Go ahead.
Iran being what they are and their nuclear program being what it is, and you mentioned dirty bombs. Do you think that Iran will be taking some of their lower grade uranium that they have been enriching and handing it out and start distributing it for dirty bombs to be used?
you know what? Anything, Mr. B, anything is possible. Like Nomad said, he had the best statement of the night. Do not underestimate any of these people.
Any of them. Yep.
Nomad.
Yeah, if I can tell you something, I operated a lot in the Balkans, in southeastern Europe, and when the Soviet Union fell, and you look at what happened between 89 and 95, we had the fall of the Berlin Wall, we had Yugoslavia shatter into different countries, we had Glasnost when what's his name, the guy with the big scar on his head, what's his name? Anyway,
Gorbachev.
right, him.
Gorbachev.
Right? Yeah. Yani Pinyamaya, Poruski Malaski Moninya, him, that guy, right? Him.
Yep.
He
yep.
That's not English. But
I thought it
Mr.
was
Bernard Shaw.
I thought it was the other English language from the English. That's what sets us apart.
Now you're talking Ernest Hemingway.
Well,
go ahead,
yes.
Nomad.
Anyway, interruption, I'm still going to continue. But here we go. A lot of the stuff that was once in the nuclear stockpile and in low-grade stuff has become an issue for the intel community. Local commanders now are sitting on stuff that was once controlled by the Soviet Union and the Great Bear. So with the breakup of the Russian Empire, effectively, from 89 to 95, some of this stuff has gone, and we don't know where it's at. And so when you have immigration coming across from Syria, across the Balkans, into Macedonia, Serbia, Montenegro, back up into the Balkans, you have people, you've got weapons, you've got people trafficking. You also can have potentially dirty bomb material, as Rennie will know. And this stuff is not movie stuff. This stuff can be crude, and it can be fashioned very, very quickly. And we have a problem with that. So
all right,
we need to keep an eye on that.
Well, thanks for that info. So we're going to throw this video up real quick of U.S. Reaper drone shot down with surface-to-air missiles. Houthis. This is a world news. Let's take a listen.
Meanwhile, Yemen's Houthi rebels claim a big victory against the United States. The Iran-backed rebels claim to have destroyed another American Reaper drone. Houthis released footage which shows the downed US MQ-9 drone. Now, this type of drone can be used for both surveillance and strikes and cost around $30 million apiece. The rebels described the drone as carrying out hostile actions in Yemen's Marib province. Now, this is not the first time the Houthis claim to have destroyed American Reaper drones. Last month, they published images of another similar drone that they downed. The U.S. military has not responded to the latest attack.
Okay, so the question I have here is this is the fourth Reaper drone that's been shot down by the Houthis?
There's a lot of conflict. There's differing opinions about that. This last one was probably some indication that it might have been hacked instead of shot down, and it was instructed to land and it crashed. So. Okay. Who knows?
I don't know if that was propaganda, but their screen showed the missile hitting the drone. So
right, I
don't know how much of that was propaganda. So, but you're saying they've been scrambling our Reaper drones and they've been forced to land?
Some of them. That's this last one. Yeah, that's a rumor has it.
Okay.
No confirmation on that. It's a possibility, and it can be done.
Okay, even better. Let's finish up before I get to you, Nomad.
Since the Houthis seized the Yemen's north and its capital of Sana'a in 2014, the US military has previously lost at least 5 drones to the rebels. The shooting down of US drones comes as the Houthis launch attacks on shipping in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, demanding Israel end the war in Gaza. The Iran-backed rebels issued a fresh warning. They have threatened to target all ships heading to Israeli ports, and not just in the Red Sea region. The Houthis have launched more than 50 attacks on shipping, seized one vessel, and sunk another since November.
Okay, Nomad.
Yes, sir. I don't know if you guys are aware, but the technology and the ballistic capability that the Houthis have, they have Scuds going back to the time of Desert Shield, Desert Storm. There's the B and the C Scud. They've got a North Korean, as I was just telling you about earlier. They've got a North Korean missile called the Hwang Song, which is a variant, and it's primarily a Chinese knockoff that the North Koreans made. They've got a Tochka, which is a Russian thing. They've got a Kwar-1 missile, which is a two-stage missile. They've got a Zelzal-3 ballistic missile and a C-802. The C-802 is probably the one that they fired at the Eisenhower because that's an anti-ship missile, but it has to be, it's wire-guided, so it has to be within line of sight to get it, which is the problem. My point is with this, our traditional, respectfully, our cultural bias and our own little bit of intelligent arrogance towards we thinking that these guys are dumb, we could pay the price. Here's the thing. If any of you heard it, and I know, Renee, you know about AMPHO, fertilizer
Yeah.
bomb, okay?
Yeah.
Now, can you imagine a cargo ship full of oil being sailed up, right, and then detonated?
Yeah.
You see, we had it. We almost had that problem, and the Houthis learned something. I heard from an intel guy I spoke to just in the last year when that ship went aground and it blocked in the same area all the trade for about 40 or 50 days. Nothing could come from the east to the west because the shipping lanes were
Right.
blocked.
Remember that. Yeah.
Right.
Imagine now the Houthis saying, why do we need to get explosives together? Just get a bulk tanker and get some other components, and you've got something else going on. And here's the other side of it. The human cost, again, similar to the Hamas, similar to the Iranians. Any hostage, dead or alive, has leverage, means money. The Bangladeshi ship with 34 people was taken hostage in March of this year in the same area. So these guys have been operating roughly almost 15 to 20 years doing this damn thing. And when Obama pulled us out of Yemen, we lost our boots on the ground and our capability to respond and react from a QRF point of view to try and respond to these things. So now it's air power and a patchwork of a coalition of other naval vessels from other countries, all safeguarding their actual shipping lanes so their goods can get through. Houthi missiles
Thanks for
were
that,
launched against
Nomad.
Israel. Yeah,
Thanks for that, Nomad. Renee.
no problem.
So I know Nomad and Chad will back me up on this. The Scud missiles. So they were cheap. They were cheap commodity, but they were so poorly built and so inaccurate. That's what made them so deadly. Am I right or wrong?
Any one of you can answer on that.
I think so. Yes, it was the equivalent in sort of in modern warfare was the V2 rocket that was used
Yeah.
against the English in
Oh,
London.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
when it ran out of fuel, it dropped and it just came
Yeah.
down.
Came
A
down,
mini version of the V2 right now, basically once it hit bingo, once it ran out of fuel, it was primarily it just dropped. It became basically an artillery shell with RDX on it or high explosive.
Right.
But also
right.
now the Ukrainians are using the same type of technology now against the Russians in Crimea. Old world stuff works every time.
You know,
Oh,
you know what the Scuds remind me of? The Katusha rockets, because I know
Oh my
you.
God.
I know I've had many of those fired at me. I know Chet has,
Yeah.
and I'm sure you have too.
Yeah.
You know when they're coming.
Well, my thing is with that old technology, that's what made it genius is because, and I say this a lot, And younger kids today don't understand what I'm saying to them, but it's like we ought to really sit and think and thank the greatest generation ever created that stopped that crazy psychopath motherfucker,
Mm-hmm.
because the technology that the Germans had
Oh,
was insane. And again, we all should thank the good Lord that we ain't all sitting here saying Heil Hitler.
yep.
B, go.
A little something from the background. How many of you remember the name of the rocket that made it to the moon that put Neil Armstrong there? What it was? The
Saturn
Saturn
five. Five.
Saturn
Five,
V.
yeah.
It was a Saturn V5.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what it was built and based on, and who built it?
Yes.
Oh,
The
yes.
German V2 rocket. Yeah, the German V2
Built
rocket. Yeah.
built on the German V2 rocket by who? Werner
Werner
von
von
Braun.
Braun. Yeah.
They
Yeah.
brought him over from Germany.
Mm-hmm.
It's Operation Paperclip.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
It should have said Operation fucking Steal All Scientists, but Paperclip, I guess, was good enough.
Or would you rather he was in the Russian hands instead?
Well, look,
No.
I use the word steal, just, kidding around. I got to put a little bit of life to this show. We can't be fucking serious every day of our lives. Anyways, yeah, I mean, the technology they were working on was crazy. And I'll tell you right now, if we didn't stop them when we did, and in 2 years from then, it was all over. It was all over.
Yeah.
It was all over, because it wasn't one of those things where it's like, okay, like just speculations, ladies and gentlemen. I just put some crazy stuff together. That's like us building the H bomb. You know what I mean? It took us forever and a day, but in Germany, it was like, fucking do it or die. I want it done in 3 weeks, or you're dead. You're gonna kill your family, whatever. And that's, for me, how they got things done quicker. Of course, with slave labor and all those things to that. Let's go to Fogman.
Yeah, like the technology, they were well on the way to inventing jet fighter aircraft that were done, but not in time for the war to really have much of an effect. That would have decimated our bombing campaigns with jet.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt. There's a really good TV show. If it's an alternate history show, it's called. I think it was on Netflix or Amazon. But anyway, it's called Man in the High Castle is the name of the show, and it's an alternate history in which Germany won World War II, and the United States of America was divided up between Japan and Germany. Interesting to watch. A lot of interesting theories in that show.
Really?
About this very topic. Yeah. So if you
divided up between Japan and Germany.
Yeah, Germany had the East Coast and Japan had the
Yeah,
West
I was
Coast.
just going to say, so it's going to be specific to the Pacific and the Atlantic. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
And there's a resistance cell within of Americans, of course, as there would be, that works on fighting those two entities, and that's the basis of the show. But it's really good, though. Kind of interesting watch.
Right. Renee?
Very good point about Germany. I'm glad you brought it up. But let me say this. Let's not underestimate these fucking nuts that we're dealing with now, because they're equally as capable of causing as much, if not more, damage.
Yeah, which assortment of nuts? There are so many right now.
Well, I'm talking the Iranians. I'm talking the Houthis.
Right. B, anything to add?
No. I think you're all exactly right on the money as far as things are. There is one little tidbit though about some of the history. I believe there have been some paperwork declassified, which give an indication that indeed Nazi Germany did have and detonate one test thermonuclear device, and that is some information that is being contested, but from what I've been reading about it and so forth, what I've seen,
I don't know. It's being contested because I don't think it was. I don't think it happened. I don't think it. Come on, man. This is Hitler we're talking about. If it remotely worked a little bit, okay. If they didn't get the big explosion that they wanted, but they could get a small explosion, fucking Hitler would use it. It would have been right attached to the V2 rocket. Okay, and that would have been it. Okay, Nomad, you look like you got something to say real quick.
Yeah, there was it came out about 4 or 5 years ago, up in the Antarctica. They found trails of a type of diesel that was used specifically by German U-boats in Antarctica. So the question was, what was German U-boat doing in Antarctica?
Mhm.
Because the ice packs in Antarctica in parts are quite similar to what you'd have in the Baltic. So from Finland, Norway, across Greenland, so up in the Arctic Circle, ice is ice regardless. So they were developing something by way of what the theory was that they were there. There was no one got lost. You don't get lost going the other side of the world. What they were what the thought was amongst Intel was a possibility that they were trying to develop a hardened exterior or a hardened type of sub that could deliver something across the Atlantic using the Arctic Circle and sneak in via, Nova Scotia, down in whatever, and drop something on us. So maybe there
Right,
was
touche.
something in it,
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe there was.
without a doubt. Fogman.
Yeah, that's a really interesting subject and interesting concept. So let's just cruise to that real quick. You got to have heavy water for nuclear to develop nuclear weapons, right?
Mm-hmm.
Deuterium oxide, 2H2O.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in between 1940 and 1944, there was a sabotage operation that was run out of it's Norwegian that was run out of
Mm-hmm.
Norway that attacked the German heavy water production plant that Nazi Germany's had set up under the guise of a hydroelectric plant. Okay, so the Norwegian heavy water sabotage was aimed at the 60 MW Vermach power station at the Rücken waterfall in Telemark. Again, it was supposed to be a hydroelectric power plant that was built in 1934. Now,
Right.
they were able to successfully sabotage that plant and destroy it, and they removed 185 kilograms of heavy water from that plant into the then neutral Norway.
Yeah, because they were in the mix of trying to maybe put together a hydrogen bomb.
Well, yeah. The plant's managing director agreed to lend France the heavy water for the duration of the war. So I don't know. That's an excellent theory, I think, and probably one that that deserves a little more investigation.
A little bit more talking about, huh?
Yeah,
Sure. We can save that for another Friday night show.
Exactly.
And we just got to come up with a name to this show because this is something that will happen frequently on Friday nights. But anyways, without further ado, Rainey, I will get to you as soon as we come back from this break.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, stick around for more of the special and Houthis attack. The Eisenhower aircraft carrier, and we are going to talk JFK conspiracy when we come back, ladies and gentlemen. We will see you in about 3 minutes.
My name is Steven, your public relations officer at FFN Media Network. We believe that every story deserves to be heard. Every voice deserves to be amplified, and every idea deserves to shine. As a small media company, we are committed to creating a platform where content creators, visionaries, and changemakers like you can thrive. You might say to yourself, why do we need FFN Network? Well, let me tell you what we can do for you. 1. Our mission is simple: empower, elevate, and engage. We are not just another media outlet. 2. Our producers will help you build your show, add content, and put you on 15 different platforms. 3. We help you promote your show. Whether it is through captivating articles, thought-provoking videos, or inspiring podcasts, we are here to help you make a difference. What sets us apart? At FFN Media Network, we embrace hard work. Our team of talented producers and creators come from all social classes, ensuring that our content reflects a rich tapestry of experiences, cultures, and viewpoints. Join the FFN team. Join FFN Media Network and be part of a community that celebrates creativity, authenticity, and positive impact. Let us amplify your voice and share your story on FFN Network and with the world. Get to know our founder, Blaise St. Pierre, the new guy in the media industry. So if you have a great idea for a show or a business and want to place an ad on FFN Network, give us a call at 774-704-5145 or email us at ffnnetwork9@gmail.com and join the FFN Network family. Thank you. FFN Network.
just watched an FFN Network.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for sticking around for more of the FFN Network special on this Friday night, 5/31, 2024. Wow, it's already the 31st already, gentlemen. Already the 31st. Tomorrow will be June 1st, man. So we're going to get to Renee so he can answer that question.
Just quickly, before we move on to JFK, I'm reading an article by a guy named William Pellis. He studied at the American Military University. And he said, how close did Germany come to obtaining a nuclear weapon during World War II? It is said that they exploded a small bomb near the end of the war. It's not a small bomb that was tested near the end of World War II, but rather a pair of larger strategic nuclear weapon prototypes that were loaded with a small amount of U-235 fissile material. Most writing about this event has appeared in public sources in recent years, and it states that the German devices were either tactical nukes or dirty bombs, i.e. radiological weapons. So they did build them and they did test them.
B?
We have an awful lot to thank for the people that gave so much in the sabotage department and the people that went through incredible pains to go and sink ships that were carrying heavy water for the deuterium experiments and their production and enrichment of uranium, and for all of the people in the military, and to all of the scientists as well that were here in America, and the ones that were there that were strategically working to retard the production and advancement of their program.
Absolutely.
Okay, Nomad, 30 seconds.
Okay. The conditions in the 1930s and 40s, where the Germans were rapidly developing this technology, is similar to the conditions now in parts of the Middle East. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility that similar conditions with access to actual plutonium grade or weapons grade materials is quite possible. Our next 9/11 would be something like that, God forbid, on a mass transit or somewhere in middle America. It won't be New York. It'll be somewhere small town USA with a shock factor.
Yep.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with it also. So without further ado, let's move on to why we are here in the first place, and that's to discuss the JFK assassination. Now, before Anne says she agrees, Hitler was out of his mind. He only towards the end he started going out of his mind, and we ought to thank the Lord that he started going out of his mind, and he wasn't listening to his top generals, because his top generals knew what the fuck they were talking about, and he was a little crazy. So let's again thank the good Lord for that. Moving on to JFK. I'm gonna let everybody know where I stand in a sense right now. Number one, okay, Lee Harvey Oswald was exactly what he said he was. He was a patsy. Okay, and number two, there was definitely more than one shooter. The evidence is overwhelming. So, with that being said, Yes, I get it. Kind of like, but we got to understand that we got the young people that we have to, you know what I'm saying, Fogman. So they see that. It'll be like, oh, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. Anyways, let's see here. So let's get into. I got a little video. For some of the viewers that might not be so familiar with the case at hand, we are definitely not going to watch it all, but we're going to give you a good 10 minutes, okay? And, get the ball rolling. So now I said how I look at it. So let's go around the panel and give everybody 15 seconds of what you believe of the JFK assassination. And I will go with Mr. B first.
Thank you very much for the honors. Uh, I'm going to open it up with saying yes. Lee Harvey Oswald was a patsy. There certainly was a lot more to it than that, and the people that were behind it. My personal belief, somewhere along the line, was with what we all customarily call the mafia. Why? Payback for Joseph Kennedy.
Yeah. Go ahead. We're listening to you, bro.
Payback for Joseph Kennedy and all of the things that he had. Everyone was favoring him, and so what does he do? He goes and takes out Joseph Kennedy's bright boy that's the president of the United States. What better thing for the mafia to do and to take and put down Joseph Kennedy, pay him back for all his rumming and robber baroning, muscling in on their territory. That's where I think it all came from.
Nomad.
You're going to hate me, Mr. B. I'm going to disagree with you.
Okay.
I don't think it's anything to do with conspiracy. I think it's a couple of people driven, like in every other ideology. I think the Warren Commission rushed to a definitive situation in response to public outcry and global outcry. I think Oswald was definitely a patsy. He even showed he was a patsy on camera before he got shot. But the ballistics and the research into what happened changed the course of protection details around the world, especially for Secret Service, because that was their biggest failure. But also the technology used, the rifle used itself, it was possible for one guy to get 2 shots off because the rifle used was one of the smoothest rifles you had in World War II. And I would go into it later on, but I would disagree. I think it was a reaction to the Bay of Pigs in Cuba, primarily because of other things that went on away from Lee Harvey Oswald. He was the
okay, but I got to cut you. It was 15 seconds. Renee, 15.
All right. So the JFK assassination, it was the first deep state revolt against the White House. Okay. And at the time, there was an operation, it was a secret operation called Northwoods. It was secret. It was declassified in 1962, and it was a plan for faking the Cuban attacks on U.S. interests in order to provide the necessary provocation for an invasion. Kennedy immediately rejected the idea, and that's why the CIA had him killed him.
Okay.
So Oswald had nothing to do with it.
All right, Fogman, you're good. Everyone's good. All right, guys and ladies and gentlemen out there, we're going to throw this video on, give everybody a basic idea, and we will put this video up on the FFN network if any of you people out there would like to continue to watch it. B, I want you fucking quiet in class. Don't disrupt the video, okay?
Yes, Daddy.
If you were ever skeptical of John F. Kennedy's assassination being an inside job, this is the story that could change your mind. Welcome to what many believe to be the most convincing of all JFK conspiracy theories. Before we talk about the evidence, and there is tons of it that may surprise even our most skeptical viewers, we need to talk a little bit about the motive. Why would the CIA, perhaps with various other officials of the American government, want to take out their own president? After all, if found guilty, it's a crime that would disgrace America forevermore. The risk involved was monumental, so there had to be a very, very big reason to go through with such a risky and treasonous plan. So we'll start our story in Cuba, Veradero Beach to be exact, about 2 hours from the capital of Havana.
Now, I just want to say real quick, now the rest of you understand why I offered this man a fucking show. That's all I'm saying.
The French journalist Jean Daniel is having lunch in the living room of the summer residence of the Cuban leader Fidel Castro, a man the CIA went to almost ridiculous lengths to try to assassinate. At about 1:30 p.m. Cuban time, the phone rings. The news from the other end is that someone had
What the hell?
This game, you're not ready.
Tried to assassinate John F. Kennedy. Castro and Daniel had already talked quite a lot about Kennedy before they received that news. The Cuban leader had pointed out he was reassured by how JFK and the Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev had been getting along so well, and that they were possibly working to effectively end the Cold War. At one point, Castro told Daniel, "I know that for Khrushchev, Kennedy is a man you can talk with. I've gotten this impression from all my conversations with Khrushchev." Castro told him that he was looking forward to working with Kennedy once the president secured a second term. This was a man the CIA despised. So when news outlets confirmed that Kennedy was dead, Castro, according to Daniel, was very solemn. Castro turned to him and said, "Everything has changed. Everything is going to change." It certainly did. There were to be no more peace talks with the Soviet Union, that's for sure. The Cold War would rage on for many more years. On March 13, 1962, the United States Army General Lyman Lemnitzer, who was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, presented a plan to the Secretary of Defense, a man JFK trusted, Robert McNamara. Like many of the people working in the highest echelons of the American military and intelligence, Lemnitzer wanted to invade Cuba. Nonetheless, to do that, the U.S. would need a good reason, so Lemnitzer introduced Operation Northwoods to McNamara. This plan pretty much sums up the kind of people that surrounded Kennedy. Operation Northwoods was what was called a false flag operation, a fabricated event in which a fake hostile action requires an offensive response. Lemnitzer wanted to attack the U.S. military bases and blame it on the Cubans. Among the bullets and bombs, U.S. intelligence propagandists would spread rumors on the radio about this vicious attack on innocent Americans. They would hire friendly Cubans to walk around close to the attacks in Cuban military uniforms. They'd then pretend to capture those men. There would be fires set, aircrafts burned, installations bombed, ships attacked, and later even funerals for mock victims. Lemnitzer said they would publish casualty lists in all the biggest newspapers, along with sad stories to get enough popular support to start an invasion of Cuba. In Part 4 of the proposal, he wrote, "We could develop a communist Cuba terror campaign in the Miami area, in other Florida cities, and even Washington." He said there would be wounding of innocent people to be widely publicized. They would want to explode a few plastic bombs in carefully chosen spots. U.S. citizens would be outraged, and of course, they'd say, "Yeah, go kill those commie terrorist bastardos." As crazy as that all sounds, it was par for the course. Such subversion was not unusual during the Cold War. Lemnitzer said all the Joint Chiefs were on board with the plan, and the CIA was firing on all cylinders to make it happen. They believed the evil communists had to be stopped at any cost, which is partly why the CIA committed or encouraged human rights abuses all over the world during the Cold War. This was the political environment JFK entered when he was elected president. To appreciate the JFK assassination conspiracy theory, you have to understand what lengths certain people in the U.S. military and intelligence would go to. Kennedy dismissed Operation Northwoods, telling Lemnitzer and other key advisors he could not foresee anything in the near future that would justify and make desirable use of the American forces to overt military action in Cuba. This is all well documented, as is everything we'll tell you today. JFK was isolated in his own government, according to the conspiracy theory. He'd already lost support among many of his advisors after the 1961 Bay of Pigs incident, when the CIA secretly sent 1,400 Cuban exiles that they'd trained into Cuba. Kennedy was a much younger president, one with different ideas about how to carry out politics. This plan had been drawn up during the Eisenhower administration before him, and even though JFK would go on to dismiss similar plans during his term, at the end of the day, he was expected to do what he was told. This all started when Castro's forces overthrew the Cuban dictator Fulgencio Batista in 1959. The CIA now wanted to throw Castro out, just as they'd covertly done with success to leaders in Iran and Guatemala, with plenty of assassinations along the way. To get the job done, Cuban exiles were trained by the U.S. at guerrilla training camps in Guatemala. American involvement was supposed to be kept secret, which did not happen. The whole thing was a total disaster. Castro's troops won and then captured many of the exiles. Kennedy
and
later
you
told
have the
friends
Bay
that
of
the Bay of
Pigs.
Pigs was a trap. The older men around him had thought that he'd be drawn into sending troops in. He told his friends Dave Powers and Ken O'Donnell they were sure I'd give in to them. He added they couldn't believe a new president like me wouldn't panic. He said they had me figured out all wrong. JFK did not trust many of the older guys who advised him, and especially the CIA director Allen Dulles. Dulles admitted in memoirs found after his death that the plan was always to get Kennedy to send in troops rather than permit the enterprise to fail. Instead, JFK handed Cuba $53 million worth of baby foods and medicine in exchange for the prisoners Castro had taken. It was a total embarrassment, and while JFK gave the green light on assassination plans for Castro, he still had to keep pushing back the hawks around him that kept telling him to invade Cuba. Then there was Vietnam. The U.S. had been active in Vietnam for years. In 1954, Vice President Richard Nixon said, if the French withdrew, the United States might have to take the risk now by putting our own boys in. The CIA later helped French forces through its Saigon military mission, SMM, directing paramilitary campaigns against the communists and assisting with propaganda. The U.S. even considered using tactical nukes on Vietnam to help the embattled French under Operation Vulture. Much later, in May 1961, JFK agreed to send 500 Special Forces troops and military advisors to help the pro-Western government of South Vietnam. A year later, close to 11,000 American military advisors were working in South Vietnam, and of course, Kennedy approved that. The Americans did not want the communists overrunning Southeast Asia, so under JFK, U.S. presence did indeed increase. But Kennedy would soon start thinking differently about Vietnam. He was under a lot of pressure to send actual combat troops to Vietnam. As the Pentagon Papers later showed, he was willing to send in advisors and let the CIA do what it needed to do, but he was against sending in units capable of independent combat. The Pentagon Papers, by the way, were thousands of pages of top-secret Department of Defense actions up until 1968 in Indochina. They were released in 1971 and showed the American public a very different side to military America, which would include secret campaigns in Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, and result in many thousands of dead civilians. The CIA was out of control, which likely wouldn't have happened had JFK not been taken out. That's what the conspiracy theorists think. Daniel Ellsberg, the military analyst and activist behind the Pentagon Papers, had always been unsure about where Kennedy had stood on Vietnam. It didn't seem to make sense to him, sending in more men yet remaining reluctant to send in the combat troops. So he asked JFK's brother Robert Kennedy, RFK, when he got the chance to in 1967. RFK, soon to be assassinated in 1968, too told him that his brother had rejected the urgent advice of every one of his top military and civilian officials, which was to send in troops. Years later, Ellsberg recorded this conversation and said that this is what RFK had said when he was asked why his brother wouldn't send in the combat troops. RFK said, "Because we already were there in 1951. We saw what was happening to the French. We saw it. My brother was determined to never let that happen to us." JFK knew what would happen partly because of the Senate Majority Leader, Mike Mansfield, who he'd sent on a fact-finding mission to South Vietnam in 1962. Mansfield returned and told JFK that getting into a war in Vietnam would be a mistake. JFK later signed a National Security Action Memorandum 217, which forbade high-ranking military and civilian personnel from going to South Vietnam without State Department clearance. This rattled the Pentagon. JFK told Mansfield he was thinking about a full withdrawal from Vietnam, but he would wait. His actual words were, "But I can't do that until 1965 after I'm re-elected. If he tried before, he'd be criticized by the conservatives and might lose some of their vote." JFK told his friend and consultant, a man we mentioned earlier, Kenneth O'Donnell, "In 1965, I'll become one of the most unpopular presidents in history. I'll be damned everywhere as a communist appeaser, but I don't care." McNamara later surprised the military hierarchy in a meeting in Honolulu when he told them 1,000 military personnel were to be withdrawn from South Vietnam by the end of the calendar year 63. McNamara told them to draw up concrete plans. It seems the military had other ideas. After JFK's death, those combat troops were sent en masse. This happened when U.S. officials and subsequently the media.
Okay, gentlemen, does anybody have anything that they wanted to add? Let's get this conversation started. We could always hit the video.
Yeah, I'll go first.
Go ahead, sir.
So, Remember in 2008 when banks were failing, we were having an economic meltdown.
Absolutely.
Okay, so in the 60s, the CIA was tied to the international drug traffic trade. Most people were unaware of the size of the unrecorded drug economy. Now, I was an undercover drug cop, so it wasn't Chet. He'll tell you. Back then, we weren't winning the war on drugs. It's 2024 today. We're no further along than we were 40 years ago. Anyway, with that being said, in 2008, the UN Office of Drugs and Crimes estimated the profits from the global drug trade to be $352 billion. And that was reported from funds from money laundering. Illicit drugs, now often estimated to be the third largest commodity in the drug trade. And it became an important factor because they took that money and gave it to the banks that were failing and stopped the banks from failing. And this goes back to the Kennedy era, okay? So the CIA's always been dirty, and it's still dirty.
Fogman.
Yeah, they had a few things on this one. The term conspiracy theory is bandied about way too much in this. A lot of the research that Rennie and I both did on this particular subject goes back to a book by Peter Dale Scott. If you're familiar with him, he's at the top of his game in researching.
I'm familiar
these
with
issues.
the book. Yes, sir.
Okay, Dallas 63. It's
Yes,
8,000 pages of information. And one of the things that got my attention in that is that this is no longer it's a conspiracy, but it's not a theory anymore. Everything in this particular book is footnoted out the ass, thoroughly sourced, and pretty much and right on as far as I can tell. Now, what I took away from again, I haven't made it through all 8,000 pages, but these are my takeaways from so far. Okay.
Yeah.
I got to put my glasses on here and refer to my notes. Actually,
oh my God, here we
if we
go.
have a second. Okay.
Mr. Magoo's gonna read it to us now.
All right. So this all leads back, as Rennie said earlier, this leads back to the deep state. Okay. What is a deep state? All right. It's Wall Street. It's corrupt politicians and bureaucracy and the military industrial complex. Okay. The other thing that got my attention on all of this stuff is that every president that has pushed for peace and prosperity, in the case of JFK, was murdered. In the case of Nixon, forced to resign. As far as Jimmy Carter goes, he was a one-term president because they just deemed him incompetent, and they did the same thing to Trump. That's why he was a one-term president. Okay, so that's kind of where I'm at so far with researching this particular subject. It's not just the JFK assassination. It's a lot deeper, and there's a lot more to it than that.
JFK assassination. Let me make sure I'm understanding you, Foggy. The JFK assassination is one small component in a much larger scale operation known as the deep state. Is that correct?
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense to me. There's nothing that I can possibly do to refute it. I absolutely believe you're correct.
Exactly. Hey, Ann, it's Dallas 63, and it's by Peter Dale Scott. Don't get it confused with the Stephen King book by a similar name.
All right, Nomad.
Oh boy.
Let us have it, brother.
This is where I lose my Christmas cards.
That's okay.
Smell something burning. It's our friendship.
2 minutes.
Okay.
2 minutes. 2 minutes.
All right. I got you. Hurry up then. Okay, here I am.
No.
Okay. Every intelligence operation, regardless whether it's US based or any other foreign intel services, always runs a parallel intel operation domestically.
Mm-hmm.
Governments don't trust the people. They never will. They don't trust who the people vote for. They don't trust who the people put in power. They don't trust that they'll keep their word. So, war and conflict equals money, equals dominance. So, yes, to a certain degree, there's a possibility of a larger umbrella or spider's web of stuff going on. But however, I listen to what you're saying. I think there's a point that's not been discussed. Global events outside of the US.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get in trouble now, and I'm an American now, so here it comes. Most Americans don't know their geography. They don't know their ass from their elbow where countries are. The prevailing opinion about Castro in Europe amongst intel has always been that he was a dual agent between US and Russian, that the Politburo had paid for him, but his security, Castro hedged his bets. He was just 90 miles from the coast of Florida. If that was going to go wrong, he was going to go. Look, his son or his brother, right, took over power and had the same apparently gentleman's agreement with the US government and Intel. Guantanamo Bay, Camp Delta, US and Cuba have access to that. So historically, go back to the Monroe policy, which was Monroe said, defend your America's back door. Let nothing come in close to the US that will cause us any problems. So Kennedy was about to stop the money and the appeasement of Cuba. The top politicians in DC could smoke a Cuban cigar, but a Cuban refugee in Miami couldn't get a phone call to his relative in Havana. So I think the conspiracy side is blown out of proportion in relation to the ordinary people. From a government intel point of view, there was winning and losing on board of that because Khrushchev didn't want a war. He didn't want nukes. He put nukes in there to force Kennedy's hand, and then he backed off. But after that, the US military didn't trust the fact that Kennedy was too much of a hippie in his thinking compared to the rigidness and conservative values of US military. Because if you take, and that's my thing.
That's for me. You're right on. You hit it. This the way I think about it. The whole thing. You know what I mean? Because there's, for me, like, I don't know, four things that the CIA and the Army wanted to get rid of Kennedy. Okay. Number one, after the whole Bay of Pigs, everything, and Kennedy was just at the point where he's like, I'm fucking sick of the CIA's bullshit. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm the fucking president of the United States. These ain't his exact words, ladies and gentlemen. This is me paraphrasing. What if I was Kennedy, what I would have said, but in his what he did say. Anyways, he's to the point where, when he's talking to his brother and he's like, look, he's like, the CIA is like out of control. You know what I mean? He couldn't control them at all. Okay. And he decided at that point that he's going to break up the fucking CIA into like 1,000 pieces. Okay. And that was a big trigger from everything that I read and I studied on them moving forward with the assassination. At some point, Kennedy could not trust his advisors anymore. He couldn't trust his advisors. Okay, military, the Army, his most trusted general, Army there, wasn't listening to a word he said. You know what I mean? And again, that was his whole point. Was what I believe stirred it all up. Vietnam had a big part of it too. Okay. They just, I don't know, the generals at that time and the military at that time, they weren't happy where, war was quieting down. We just got done, with the Korean War, all that fun shit like that, and just wanted more war. And Kennedy was a peace guy. It's what he wanted. And I'm going to go with Renee.
Back then it was no secret. It was public knowledge that the Central Intelligence Agency was exempt from the rule of law. And I worked with, when I was with DOS, I worked with some spooks from the CIA, and they're all snakes.
They still use that word, spooks?
Spooks, yeah. Today,
really, I'm serious.
They had their own badges. They had their own separate entrances. Amongst us, we used to call them spooks. But anyway, to this day, they're supposed to conform to the law. But we all know that they don't. That's how they operate, and that's what makes them so dangerous.
Right. And to use the word like above the law. B.
Uh, a point here for consideration: wars make money. Kennedy wanted to pull the plug, apparently, on the Vietnam War and the idea of shutting down the Cold War. And here's all of these people in the CIA and all these other things, entities, gearing up for all of these manufacturers to start kicking out things, making guns and bombs and this and that. And if Kennedy pulled the plug on it, there goes all of their guns and bombs and whatever else money. Maybe this was a consideration for knocking them off so that they would be able to continue on the war and go ahead and exact their lining their pockets with the war profiteering.
They had all their money from their drug trade too, to 352 billion.
Fogman.
Yeah, so going back to Nomad's point, yeah, this is a worldwide issue. It's not just Kennedy. It's not any one issue, one problem, one given thing. Back to the definition of the deep state. Wall Street, corrupt politicians and bureaucracy, military-industrial complex, worldwide. Why, you ask? Well, the purpose for all that is the deep state has always pushed global dominance. Okay, that's the purpose for all of this. And again, it's not just Kennedy. It's not one thing. They're pushing global domination. And what they're trying to do here too is create a crisis that suspends the Constitution, martial law, and all things of those issues. And that's kind of where we're at right now, right? We had this conversation earlier about civil war, rioting in the streets, and so forth. What's the first thing that's going to happen? Martial law, suspend the Constitution, right? So this is all part of the plan. This has been going on for decades. This didn't happen overnight. This didn't start in 1963. This has been going on since World War II. And we're just seeing the culmination of all that effort at this point.
Yeah, well, that's when we really, towards the end of World War II, is where intelligence was, that's all it was. You know what I mean? Getting our boys back home and our women back home, all that stuff like that. But definitely, the intelligence, was the most important thing there. Nomad?
I think you're gonna hate me for this, but here we go. I think you're missing one very basic point with Kennedy. Kennedy's father, Joe Kennedy, ruled his family with an iron fist. He surrounded Robert Kennedy, right? JFK, everybody in that family was dominated by him. Okay? He picked McNamara. He picked the circle that JFK had around him. So he basically set up his future cabinet with him. Now, the psychology of an Irish American is different from anybody else in this country. I'm telling you now. And I'm not being pretentious by saying that. Here's what I say. You always control your environment. You never let it control you. That goes your politics, your family, what's discussed at your table, what comes in and outside of your house. If it's not welcome, you're not wanted. When you have people who are not as educated as these guys, because Kennedys were very, very privileged, okay? So the situation is that they ruled everything. When Annie Kennedy said it's not going to happen, it was not going to happen, because that's how they were raised, in their own door, inside their own house. Put that into the White House, into Camelot. That same psychology and behavioral way of doing things dominated and intimidated what was around the table to him. Kennedy basically didn't care about what generals taught. He said, I'm the commander-in-chief and you'll do as I say. You lose your job, you'll be replaced, and I'll cut your funding. And that scared people. So that's the seeds of conspiracy. But however, other things in the world were happening from a pacifist point of view in the 60s. We're less than 20 years from the Marshall Plan, when World War II, when we basically left, when we rebuilt Europe with American money. We were broke. So we needed something. So yes, with Renee's point, the possibility of some other conflict would have brought money in to the industrial complex. So there is a a semblance of possibility. But I firmly believe that if they wanted him gone, they wouldn't have had to go to all that trouble to do it. They could have done it quite at home, quite easily. Quite easily.
Fogman?
Yeah, what about Papa Joe's organized crime connections in Havana with the casinos? That all kind of went to shit too. Anybody want to think about that?
Yeah, with the Giancarlos and everything else. Yeah.
That was a money-making machine for them, and what the hell happened to them?
Yeah.
Castro eliminated all the casinos and so forth.
Yep.
So did Daddy have any hand in on the reason why to get into Cuba and fuck around with Castro? I mean, if you're gonna, if that's what you're saying that you read or you heard, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because we all know that the old man was crooked. You know what I mean? Mob
Joseph
ties,
Kennedy's
all that shit
connections
like
down in
that.
Havana, Cuba, goes back much farther than that.
Okay,
Back to the time
all right.
of,
So
of,
even
of, of
so,
the
even
Depression
still,
and Prohibition.
Yeah, he was a bootlegger. He was a
He was a
boozer.
bootlegger. He was
yes,
a rum runner and a
that's,
robber baron, and they were bringing molasses back. And Kennedy had gotten himself appointed, enabled to be the sole importer of Haig and Haig pinch bottle scotch for medicinal purposes for the United States.
Yeah.
And he went around selling the stuff, saying, "Okay, for every bottle or for every case of Haig and Haig scotch you want, you have to buy 5 cases of my cheap rum that I'm brewing in the back streets of freaking Boston."
Yeah.
And all of that stuff was coming up from Havana.
Nomad.
Robert Kennedy was more of a risk and more of a maverick and an unknown than JFK himself was. He was the 2.0 version of his brother. When he took a handle on the justice end of it, he basically was on the point. He had access to all information on everything because government needs money. Correct about the smuggling side of it, where you can smuggle a bottle of rum, you can smuggle a weapon, you can smuggle a person, you can smuggle maybe a nuke. And there was a paranoia. You're talking about as well. You're talking about, McCarthyism. You're talking about fear of communism, Red China, Mao Zedong. Look beyond Cuba. Look what was happening in the world too. Because I tell you something, folks. I'm an American and proud of it now. But sometimes America thinks it's more important than it actually is on global affairs. And I tell you, the majority of the world didn't care less. The threat of nuclear war, when Khrushchev was going to put nukes based on Cuba, only then did the world pay any attention to what was going on. Korea had been a disaster. The French had messed up Southeast Asia all the time. So the Americans were there prepared to take over. But the cost of taking over the French's mistake was trade, currency, technology, and an American version of an Iron Curtain to stop the Russians going back in. And you have a geopolitical side to this that is not maybe discussed too often here because people are intellectually lazy enough in the colleges to figure out how important Cuba was. Cuba saved us. Kennedy saved us. But he paid the price ultimately. Last thing, there was a dry run on Kennedy assassination in Springfield, Illinois, the year before he was killed. Somebody spotted a rifle out of a window, and it never made it into the Warren Commission. Just saying.
You know what? Something we haven't mentioned tonight is you can call the show. Anybody wants to talk to us at. Once it gets there, I'll give you the phone number. Call the show, 508-974-4231, the FFN network.
Yeah, give us a buzz. We'd like to hear what your opinion is on the JFK assassination. With that being said, we're going to take another quick break. And when we come back, we'll play a little bit more video, talk a little bit, and then we're going to say good night. We'll be right back, about 3 minutes.
My name is Steven, your public relations officer at FFN Media Network. We believe that every story deserves to be heard. Every voice deserves to be amplified, and every idea deserves to shine. As a small media company, we are committed to creating a platform where content creators, visionaries, and changemakers like you can thrive. You might say to yourself, Why do we need FFN Network? Well, let me tell you what we can do for you. 1. Our mission is simple: empower, elevate, and engage. We are not just another media outlet. 2. Our producers will help you build your show, add content, and put you on 15 different platforms. 3. We help you promote your show. Whether it is through captivating articles, thought-provoking videos, or inspiring podcasts, we are here to help you make a difference. What sets us apart? At FFN Media Network, we embrace hard work. Our team of talented producers and creators come from all social classes, ensuring that our content reflects a rich tapestry of experiences, cultures, and viewpoints. Join the FFN team. Join FFN Media Network and be part of a community that celebrates creativity, authenticity, and positive impact. Let us amplify your voice and share your story on FFN Network and with the world. Get to know our founder, Blaise St. Pierre, the new guy in the media industry. So if you have a great idea for a show or a business and want to place an ad on FFN Network, give us a call at 774-704-5145 or email us at ffnnetwork9@gmail.com and join the FFN Network family. Thank you. FFN Network.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for sticking around with the FFN Network special. We're thinking of calling it FFN Network Friday night special, a midnight special. It's the midnight special.
Soul Train.
You know what I mean? Some Soul Train.
No,
Friday
you gotta
night.
do that right. You gotta do Soul Train.
I didn't want to culturally appropriate.
Yeah, exactly. We weren't trying to, we weren't trying to
What are you talking about, Willis?
We weren't trying to grow a fucking afro here, B. Anyhow, let's listen to a few more minutes. You know what? It's getting pretty late. It's our first show. We really didn't give ourselves a time limit. So what we're going to do here, ladies and gentlemen, is we're going to thank you for tuning in, and we will have the second part of the JFK conversation with you next Friday, and from 8 p.m. until what do you figure, guys? An hour and 15, But we will definitely be here at 8 p.m. until whatever time we get tired, because we're old. You know what I mean?
Past my bedtime.
Or before Rainey passes out on his desk. One of the two. You know what I mean? Again, guys, 10 seconds for me. Peace and love to each and every one of you out there. Don't forget to catch us next Friday from 8 p.m. until whenever. with the FFN Network special. And don't forget to check out the other shows starting Monday with Unboxed Thoughts with Nick Parsons from 7 to 8. Sorry. And the way we see it, Tuesday nights from 7 to 9 p.m. Of course, Wednesday, Politicking with Mr. B from 7 to 8 p.m., followed by I-12 GIA, Real Talk with Real People, Wednesday night from 8 to 9 p.m.-ish, right here on the FFN network. And Thursday is the Miss Tammy and Blazeman show from 7 to 8 p.m. And hopefully, ladies and gentlemen, we have a show coming to the FFN network soon that will fill that Thursday night spot from 8 to 9. With that being said, again, peace and love to each and every one of you out there. Mr. B, 10 seconds.
Thank you, everybody. I've been informed very well, and we will continue to inform the public with the truth, not just supposition. Guys, have a good night.
Fogman.
Yeah, as always, keep the ones that you love close and give them a big hug. Be prepared to self-rescue. Go to the Facebook page. Bring them home now. Let's either bring the remains or the actual hostages that are still in that shithole over their home. Good night, folks.
All right, Rainey.
Nomad, Blazeman, Mr. B, Froggy. I love you guys all. You're my brothers. Thank you for making our shows such a great, great success and such a pleasure to be part of.
Aw. We love you too, man.
I'm being serious.
Me too. We love you too, man.
We love you too, brother.
Yeah, and I thought I'd stepped in.
All right, Nomad, 10 seconds, buddy.
Thank you for the opportunity, everybody. You'll be seeing a bit more of me. I will continue to be a hemorrhoid on all discussions, and I will try my best to slow down and speak some proper English.
That's better than being an asteroid, brother.
Just don't play any bagpipes, all right?
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, good night. Okay, don't forget, go to ffnnetwork.org and sign up to our webpage. Again, good night, everybody.
Good night.
You have just watched an FFN Network production.